issues of perfectionism. It increases good sportspersonship. As a parent, the key thing that we're talking about is providing responsive support. So responsive support is where you provide support that validates your child, that shows you care about them and that you understand them. That doesn't mean that you can always do exactly what they want. And it doesn't mean that they always get their own way, but it means that you engage in conversations with them where you can then have a discussion around why that's not possible. So unfortunately, if your child wants to play 5 sports and the 5th sport's not available, or they want to play 3 sports and 1 sport says, but you've got to be at training all of these times, and so it negates them being able to do other sports. It's about listening to your child, validating, responding, recognizing what they're telling you, but then having a conversation with them about, okay, well, these are our options and this is the situation. And so it's, there's no quick fix with that. And, in an ideal world, all of the sports opportunities would be available, but it's about bringing the child into the conversation so they know why they can and can't do things.
And then part of the decision-making process,
Yes. Yeah. And that's, and I'm going to anticipate a question that may come, which is, because it often comes, which is, well, at what age can you do this? And when do you take it in? And I would say as soon as you can, bringing children into that conversation is important. And, you might limit the options earlier on, and you might give them more options as you get older. But, the sooner you bring them in, the sooner it becomes common that you talk about those situations and those opportunities, the easier it is to sort of continue as you move into childhood. And that actually leads us very nicely into the idea of parenting in itself. So parenting is very complicated, and there's a number of ways in which parents influence children. And one of them is around the specific behaviors or the practices that you display. So that's the sort of day-to-day things that you do as a parent, that provision of support, those comments you make, that feedback that you give. But there's also the general climate or the general environment that you create as a parent, which will influence certain outcomes for your child. And what we know within the sport, although there's a big caveat against this literature is very Western. It's not all that culturally sensitive. But the literature to date would tell us that within sports settings, parents who adopt an authoritative parenting approach, so that's this one here, this idea of parent and child talking about it, having a reciprocal relationship where you kind of communicate together, where you're responsive as a parent, we do know that leads to more positive outcomes in general. It reduces issues of perfectionism, it increases good sportspersonship, etc. So what we're talking about here is, as a parent, if you can try and create an environment where you really do bring your child into conversations, where you try to be democratic as much as you can within constraints. And again, just to reiterate, that's not saying anything goes, because that would put you into the permissive category. It's about clear expectations within boundaries where your child can explore the boundaries. That is likely to lead to more positive outcomes.
If I asked my 8-year-old if he wanted to have ice cream every day, he'd say he'd want to have ice cream every day.
Exactly. And that's where I think we have a little bit of a misunderstanding around the autonomy. So it's not to say ask your child if they want ice cream every day. It's to say, would you like, I don't know, pasta or pizza? And then they have a choice. So they still have choice and they're still engaged in the decision making, but you've got ultimate control because you've provided the options. Yeah. And that's what we're talking about here in terms of kind of engaging and involving your child. You just have to be ready that if you give 2 options and they give the one you weren't anticipating, you've still got to be prepared for. You've still got to go there.
Yeah.